Hey guys, we're coming to the end of the last lesson in this chapter. We've got a test coming up pretty soon, so pay close attention to this. I will be back tomorrow. If you have questions on it, give it your best shot. Before we start, you need to pause the video and get yourself a calculator and a board so that you can see where I'm getting these numbers from. Math is not a spectator sport, so you can't just sit there and it just goes in osmosis. You've got to make your brain work. So pause the video, go grab you a calculator and a board so you can participate as we do this today. Okay, in this last lesson we're going to be being asked to divide numbers that are written in scientific notation, and we're going to need to write our final answer in scientific notation. So just like a lot of these other lessons in this chapter, I'm going to do this first problem the long way, and hopefully when we get the final answer you'll realize that there's a shortcut. There's been a lot of shortcuts in this chapter, I realize that. Supposed to make your life easier, but sometimes when you get too many shortcuts it's hard to remember them. So tomorrow we'll hopefully get a good review and we can review some of the shortcuts that we've seen in this chapter. Okay, so our first problem is 8 times 10 to the 5th power divided by 2 times 10 squared. Well, 8 times 10 to the 5th power in standard form looks like an 8 followed by 5 zeros. I'm going to divide that by 2 times 10 squared, which is 200. 200 goes into 800 4 times. And so I can fill the rest of these with zeros. So I end up with 4,000. Well, 4,000 as in scientific notation is 4 times 10 to the 3rd power. Okay, so that's my final answer. Now let's look and see if there was a shortcut to get there and where we could skip this whole step. Because sometimes, as we've seen in this chapter, the exponents are really big and we might have 23 zeros, and that would be ridiculous to write all of that out. So I ended with a 4 here, and over here I had an 8 and a 2. So hopefully you're seeing that, hey, we could just do 8 divided by 2 and that would get us the 4. My exponents was a 5 on top and a 2 on the bottom, and hopefully you're seeing, hey, we could just subtract those and that would get us the 3. And so our final answer would be 4 times 10 to the 3rd power. That is the shortcut. So if you can remember one more shortcut in this chapter, then it'll make your life easy. So let's try that shortcut on this next problem. Here we have 6 times 10 to the 3rd power divided by 3 times 10 to the 7th power. So we'll try 6 divided by 3 is 2. Scientific notation is always times 10. Don't forget the 10. And then I'm going to do 3 minus 7, and 3 minus 7 is negative 4. That negative 4, remember, indicates that we have a very small number. If I were to write this back into standard form, that would mean that the decimal point would be moving to the left 4 places. So this is a number that's less than 1. It's between 0 and 1. It's a very tiny number. Okay, well that seems simple enough. Now sometimes our numbers here have decimals, and that's why our calculator comes in handy, so get your calculator out. On this next problem, it is 7.9 times 10 to the 5th divided by 2.3 times 10 to the 3rd. So I'm going to punch in my calculator 7.9 divided by 2.3. And I get this big decimal. Hopefully you're looking at the same thing on your calculator. It's 3.4347826. Well, gosh, we don't want to write all of those numbers. For the purposes of this math class, your 8th grade math class, we'll round our decimal numbers to the nearest hundredth for this lesson. When you get into physical science next year, they may ask you to round it differently, so you'll have to just pay attention to how in science class they're wanting you to write it, or in math class, in high school math class, how you're being asked to write it. But for this year, we will round this to the nearest hundredth. So we'll write that as 3.43. It's always times 10. And then I'll subtract my exponents, and 5 minus 3 is 2. Okay, that seems simple, and just like always, there's a little catch. There's a little hook. Every once in a while, something strange will happen, and we may need to do another step. So let me tilt this just a little bit. Okay, so let's try this trick on the next one and see what comes up. So punch in 6.5. divided by 7.3, and I get 0.8904109. Well, I just told you we'll round things to the nearest hundredth, so I'll make that be 0.89, 0.89. Times 10 to the, I'm going to subtract 6 and 2, so 6 minus 2 is 4. Okay, so when I do the trick, I end up with that answer, and I hope maybe you're seeing, hey, there's something wrong with that. It's not in perfect scientific notation form. We need to get it in perfect scientific notation form. And we've kind of seen this when we were multiplying numbers in scientific notation. Every once in a while, weird things happen with this, so let me show you how I fix this up. You're not going to like it because it's one extra step, and I know you guys hate to do one extra step, but you're going to have to do one extra step, so get over it. Okay, so 0.89 is not in scientific notation. The decimal point is in the wrong spot. The decimal point needs to be between the 8 and the 9 to be in scientific notation. So I'm going to just rewrite this number in scientific notation. I'm going to ignore the times 10 to the 4th, just ignore it for a little bit, and just write this in scientific notation. So 0.89 in scientific notation is 8.9 times 10 to the negative first. That's just this number in scientific notation, okay? Then I'll pay attention to the times 10 to the 4th again. And now, on my final answer then, I'll add these exponents, just like we did earlier in the chapter where when we multiplied numbers that had the same base number, we could add the exponents. It's the same thing. So I end up with 8.9 times 10 to the 3rd, because negative 1 plus 4 would be 3. I know, one extra step makes it confusing. Quit complaining. I can already hear you now, you're complaining. Okay, all right, let's try this one more time. So here we have 3.7 times 10 to the 7th divided by 5.2 times 10 squared. So I'm going to punch in my calculator, 3.7 divided by 5.2. I'm going to hold my breath and hopefully that decimal point's in the right spot. Oh, but it's not quite, I can already tell. So I've got a decimal number that says 0.7115384. Hopefully you've got the same thing. Hopefully you're doing this. Math is not a spectator sport. Okay, we're going to round this to nearest hundredths, so it's going to be 0.71. Times 10 to the 5th power, because 7 minus 2 is 5. Okay, that's not in scientific notation, we've got to fix it. So I'm going to ignore the 10 to the 5th for a little bit, and I'm just going to pay attention to this number. This number in scientific notation is 7.1 times 10 to the negative first. Then I will pay attention to the 10 to the 5th. I'm going to add my exponents, and I end up with an answer of 7.1 times 10 to the 4th power. Okay, go back and watch these last couple examples again if you need to, because it is going to show up on your homework. Now, not always will you have to do that extra step. Sometimes your decimal is going to be in the right place right away and you'll be done. But sometimes your decimal's not in the right spot yet and you got to fix it up a little bit. Okay, so go watch this last couple again if you need to see it again. And then you're going to get your homework paper and you're going to get that done. And I will see you tomorrow and you're going to be good today. And your vocab is also due tomorrow. Love you guys. Bye.